when we started thinking about how to bring more comedy to the Playhouse, we realized that the release calendar was not being particularly accommodating. You don't get a lot of great comedies now the way that we used to, which is part of why it's so fun to watch comedies today from the past and realize that they still work. The genre is still as alive in those films as it was back then. But the problem that I was having as a curator is that I'm not personally the funniest guy to represent these movies. So we had this great idea of let's get some comics in here who really know their stuff and know these movies to tell us a little bit more about the films you're about to see. We had a really fun opportunity to do that to kick this off a couple weeks back with Eddie Brill and Young Frankenstein. And for Some Like It Hot, I was thrilled to find out that we had another comic who's done his time, who's been on the scene and knows where all the bodies are buried out there and has a lot to say about many different things. So I hope that this introduction not only helps set the stage for Some Like It Hot, but for future opportunities to bring Bill McCarty to the Southampton Playhouse. Please join me in welcoming him now to the stage.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you all for coming out here this evening. It is great to be here. And as Eric, if you walked in here thinking you're going to see the Odyssey in IMAX with Dolby Sound and wall-to-wall special effects starring Matt Damon, I got to tell you, you're in the wrong place. You're going to see Some Like It Hot in 35 millimeter and glorious black and white with a enhanced mono soundtrack. And there are two great special effects. You have Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis in drag running from the mob during the Prohibition era. That and Marilyn Monroe. That's it. Just Marilyn Monroe being Marilyn Monroe. I'm Bill McCarty. As Eric said, I'm a comic, and I was also thrilled when Abby asked me to do something before the movie tonight. And honestly, I figured that doing 10 or 12 minutes of material before an audience that's about to laugh for 2 hours was a bit redundant. I considered showing up in drag, but honestly, I'm not getting paid enough for that, and you guys are paying too much to have to put up with it. So I thought we'd talk about the movie that you guys are going to see this evening. Is there anyone here tonight seeing Some Like It Hot for the very first time? Any of you? Oh, wow, several of you. Okay, well, let me tell you something about this film. This film, though it purports to be a comedy, contains screen material elements that are judged to be seriously morally offensive to Christian and traditional standards of morality and decency. Furthermore, its treatment dwells almost without relief on gross suggestiveness in costuming, dialogue, and situations. The subject matter of transvestitism naturally leads to complications in this film, and there seem to be clear implications of homosexuality and lesbianism. The dialogue is not only double entendre, but outright smut. The offense in costuming is obvious in the present atmosphere of our society, which seems to be calling for censorship and controls. This picture will only add fuel to the fire. Wow. I know you thought you were coming here to see a screwball comedy by the great Billy Wilder. Does anyone need a fainting couch? Y'all okay? All right. Okay, first things first, that was not written by me, nor was it written by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. No, that was written by the very Reverend Monsignor Thomas F. Little in a letter to the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, way back in March 1959. And the very Reverend Monsignor was executive secretary of the Catholic Legion of Decency. And apparently one of the qualifications for that particular job was having absolutely no sense of humor. And by the way, that title, he wasn't just a reverend. He was a very Reverend Monsignor. That is a mouthful of a title, I think you'll agree. I think that was supposed to make up for a lifetime of poverty, chastity, and wearing black all summer. And you want the adjective very in the title, by the way. It's really just clergymen who get to tack a very onto their title. Doctors don't get to do that. You don't make an appointment with the very learned gastroenterologist or the very competent lower GI specialist. Anyway, from 1936 to 1978, the very Reverend Monsignor Thomas F. Little's job was to let Catholics know what movies were okay for them to see, which ones were morally objectionable, and which ones were outright condemned. Now, to be fair, the very Reverend Monsignor Thomas F. Little stopped short of condemning Some Like It Hot, but by God, he sure found it to be morally objectionable. And I have to say for myself that when the Catholic Church condemned a film or even found it to be morally objectionable, I'm not entirely sure it worked out the way they intended. I was a Catholic kid. I grew up in Queens, just down the road from here. And when I was a kid, the movies that the church took the time out to condemn, things like Rosemary's Baby, Clockwork Orange, Barbarella, Reefer Madness, literally anything with Brigitte Bardot, that was the stuff we wanted to see. That was the stuff that you needed to know about. Oh, and by the way, easiest way to get into a movie if you're a kid, get into a movie condemned by the church, slip $5 to an alcoholic priest to buy you a ticket. But I'm happy to say that the Catholic Church has changed. We now have Pope Leo, who hails from Chicago. And of course, you may not know, Some Like It Hot begins in Chicago with Billy Wilder's version of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And the Catholic Church has dropped its condemnation of Some Like It Hot. I would go so far as to say Pope Leo has probably seen the movie a time or two himself. So if you're Catholic, you don't have to worry about going to hell if you laugh at the movie tonight. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that in a lot of ways, Some Like It Hot. Hi, welcome. We're just getting started. How you doing? Some Like It Hot was way ahead of its time. Some Like It Hot was, by the way, released without the approval of the Hays Code, which set the guidelines for movies from 1934 to 1968. It went on to make $40 million anyway and kind of marked the beginning of a real loosening up in the way movies approached issues of sex and lifestyle. I mean, come on. Jack Lemmon was wearing heels about 15 years before David Bowie even began to wonder what Major Tom would look like in a dress. And 66 years ago, Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis's pronouns, at least for Some Like It Hot, were already he, she, him, her, and his, hers. I don't think either one of them tried to use they. And Marilyn Monroe's pronouns were always she, her, and va, 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 voom. As a matter of fact, when they were testing the makeup for the movie, Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis went in and used the makeup table in the ladies' room, not as any sort of personal statement, but just to see if they could pass themselves off as women without being challenged, which they did. And their makeup, by the way, for Lemmon and Curtis, for Some Like It Hot, is the reason that the movie was filmed in black and white. Billy Wilder found that the heavy makeup used to transform Lemmon and Curtis into Josephine and Daphne also made them appear green in color. So at the last minute, Billy Wilder opted to shoot in black and white. Now, at the time that shooting began, Marilyn Monroe was coming off an 18-month hiatus from making movies. She took the film role as a way to make money. Her husband at the time was Arthur Miller, and he was facing contempt of Congress charges for refusing to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee, and so she took the role to make money. Monroe was rather notoriously late on the show. She was constantly keeping people waiting. This may have had to do with the fact that she had recently suffered a miscarriage. I don't know, but when you watch the film, you'll notice a couple of lines in there. She says, "Where's the bourbon?" at one point. 59 takes for that one. She kept on screwing it up. Where's the scotch? Where's the whiskey? Where's the bonbons? Billy Wilder resorted to writing the line on every surface within her eyesight during the taping. Also, it's me, Sugar, 47 takes for that one. But Marilyn Monroe, here's the thing about Monroe. There's a story I first heard about her in an acting class, and I've since heard it repeated in documentaries about Monroe. Maybe you've heard this. Monroe lived in New York City for a while, and she was studying at the Actors Studio, which is still over on 44th Street. She was able to get around in public as Norma Jean without being mobbed by sort of dressing down, not doing the Monroe walk, which you will see in this, and just sort of gliding through the street. And she would occasionally tease the person she was with, whether it was a friend or a reporter, and she'd say in her breathy voice, "Do you want to see her?" And she'd just fluff up her hair, arch her back, strike a pose, and turn on some inner switch that only she knew about, and suddenly Norma Jean was gone, and Marilyn Monroe was there, and everyone in the vicinity would know about it, and she'd have to, make a getaway at that point. That is the Monroe you will be seeing tonight, the one that stopped traffic. Some facts for you. The production budget for Some Like It Hot was $2.9 million. That would be about $40 million today. Some Like It Hot was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Screenplay for Billy Wilder and his collaborator Izzy Diamond. It won only one Academy Award, and that was for Best Costuming. And the costuming for the band, for the gangsters, for Lemon and Curtis is impressive. The costuming for Marilyn Monroe is either spectacular or, if you are the very Reverend Monsignor Thomas F. Little, scandalous, one or the other. Some Like It Hot won 3 Golden Globe Awards for Best Musical or Comedy, Best Actress for Marilyn Monroe, and Best Actor for Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis were not Billy Wilder's first choices to play the characters. His first choice to play Jerry/Daphne was Frank Sinatra. Sinatra wasn't interested. He also considered having Bob Hope and Danny Kaye do the leads. He originally offered the role that Jack Lemmon does to Jerry Lewis. Jerry turned it down because he didn't think that being in drag could be funny for an entire movie. Every Christmas and Easter after that, Lemmon would send Jerry Lewis chocolates and a thank you note. The movie also features some wonderful supporting performances. Joan Shawley is Sweet Sue, the leader of Sweet Sue and her society Syncopators. Some of you may remember her from being Pickles on the Dick Van Dyke Show. George Raft is Spats Columbo. There's a colorful name for you, Spats Columbo. George Raft is one of those actors, I know the name, I didn't really know much about him. He played a lot of gangsters. He originated that kind of cliche bit of a gangster flipping a coin to be sort of intimidating or unimpressed. Watch for a riff on that when George Raft's character, Spats, sees a younger gangster flipping a coin. There's a funny moment in there. And Joe E. Brown, who was a beloved actor in Hollywood, plays Osgood Fielding III. Joey Brown has the last line of the movie, which is one of the great last lines in a movie ever. I won't spoil it for you, but it's one of those cases where when you hear it, it was a placeholder. They weren't happy with the last line, and then they did a preview for an audience. The audience loved it, and it stayed in. Now, I was going to say that you are about to see the #1 movie, the #1 comedy on the American Film Institute list of the funniest 100 comedy movies ever made. But then, just a few weeks ago, on June 30th, that treacherous son of a bitch, Mel Brooks, turned 100. And wouldn't you know it, the American Film Institute bumped Blazing Saddles from #6 to #1, and Some Like It Hot got dropped to second place. I'm sure you've seen Blazing Saddles, and I'm sure the very Reverend Monsignor Thomas F. Little would have a lot to say about Blazing Saddles. But I would, in closing, I would argue that even though we can stream or watch almost any movie at any time on any sort of a screen, you really haven't seen a movie until you've seen it on a real movie screen in a real movie theater. And a comedy is never funnier than when you see it with a real movie audience. You folks are in for a treat tonight. I want to thank you all for listening. And now you can settle back, relax, and enjoy the second funniest American comedy ever made, Some Like It Hot. Thank you, folks. Enjoy the movie.
Once more, Bill McCarty, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I have to say that Thomas Little letter is a pretty good endorsement of the movie. How did you find that thing?
There's a thing called the Google machine, and so you can find almost anything on there. And yeah, that's a gem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, before I let you go, I was going to ask you just one question about that because, I think it's very interesting thinking about the way that comedy tends to make people uncomfortable in the moment that they're in. I think on some level we're going through that now with a lot of contemporary comedy. What do you make of that tendency for comedy to be the thing that makes people uncomfortable? And you could take the mic too.
Well, ideally the best comedy gets at something that's true. And sometimes truth makes people uncomfortable, and we're certainly in a moment now when the truth could make a lot of people, I think, very uncomfortable, and there's a whole sort of subgenre of cringe comedy. Larry David being a perfect example of it. Larry David's new series has some wonderful cringeworthy stuff. His series Curb Your Enthusiasm was always funniest when you were just cringing about it. So that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, and then the other thing I was going to ask you is, why do you think this movie, in spite of the objections of this gentleman who wrote a letter to the MPAA, mortified by all the things that this movie is doing, why did they get away with it?
Because it was funny. Because it's that simple. The thing got released and people flocked to it and loved it. Marilyn Monroe was a huge draw, and even though she was looking to do more serious dramatic roles at that point, she does her wonderful, blonde self in this thing. Just the fact that it was so damn funny made it successful. And Thomas F. Little, his job was to be outraged by things like this. That was what he was supposed to do. Do you guys remember that, the Legion of Decency stuff? Or is some of you would, some of you wouldn't?
I was going to say look it up because it's a fascinating history, and certainly even movies shown at this theater face some of that, some of those challenges. So the last thing I was going to ask you is, if anyone's encountering your work for the first time, what else do you have going on? Where else might people be able to appreciate what you put out?
I've been sort of taking a break from stand-up lately because I had other things going on, and I wrote a play called Hell Gig that may make its way out to this part of the island at some point in the next year or so. So that's an interesting development, but that's about it for now.
Well, to be continued on that front.
To be continued.
Please come back. But for now,
to.
Thank you for helping set the stage for this show. I hope you continue to do that bit because it's a wonderful way to set up this movie. Our next one is The Three Amigos, so we really appreciate everyone coming out to support comedy at the Southampton Playhouse. Come back soon, and once again, thank you to Bill for being here tonight. Folks. Bill McCarty.